Now look, yes, I know I said that you would all be getting a longer video this Christmas, but something has come to my attention that I frankly just couldn't resist but cover. In a table-sized Productions first, we get to make fun of a modern tank! Now, as a disclaimer, the development of this vehicle is still ongoing, so this video could end up being horrendously out of date very soon. Just so you're aware. Anyway, the story of this vehicle goes back to the 1990s, when the British and the Americans would carry out a joint program called the UK/USA Tracer, which would end up being cancelled. Part of the program included something called the Future Rapid Effects System, which was intended to find a replacement for the British Combat Vehicle Reconnaissance Tracked Vehicle family, which had been in service in 1971, while most other NATO armies had already replaced their AFVs with IFVs. Well, the British would take another stab at getting an IFV of their own, and in March 2010, General Dynamics UK would win a contract to develop such a vehicle after years of fighting the all-too-well-known BAE systems. The Ministry of Defense would end up picking the Austrian-Spanish-designed Escad-2 as a base for the new vehicle, which BAE Systems tried to counter by offering to produce the CV-90 in Newcastle. This proposal was promptly ignored, and the £500 million demonstration phase contract was handed to General Dynamics, who would begin altering the Escad-2 chassis design to fall more in line with British Army requirements. In December 2012, the now-known Scout IFV passed the preliminary design review, which was followed by the successful conclusion of the Common Base Platform Critical Design Review in late 2013. In June of the following year, the Protected Mobility Reconnaissance variant of the Scout IFV family completed its design review phase with a mobile test rig undergoing cold weather, mobility trials, and accelerated life testing, and also completed system de-risking, whatever that means. The same year at the DVD exhibition, the first pre-production model of the PMRS was unveiled, which had been constructed by General Dynamics in Spain. In September 2014, the British government would place an order for 589 Scout SV IFVs at a cost of £3.5 billion, not including VAT. In July of the following year, the Ministry of Defense would conclude their study that the Scout could be produced in the UK rather than in General Dynamics facilities in Spain. A £390 million maintenance package was established with General Dynamics, who agreed to move production of the remaining 489 vehicles to the UK in the newly acquired former forklift factory in Pentrabach in South Wales. Thales UK would construct the gun sight systems in order to protect engineering and manufacturing jobs in Scotland. In August 2015, Rheinmetall would be contracted to produce the Scout SV's turrets, with Medjet manufacturing the ammunition handling system. In April 2016, the main cannon and chain gun underwent successful testing, and in December, manned firing tests of the machine guns were completed. It's worth pointing out that in September 2015, this vehicle would undergo a name change from Scout to a name that will likely go down in infamy: Ajax. Yes, we are rolling the title card this late in the video, don't worry about it. Now, we could be here all day talking about figures and numbers and all sorts of other boring development stuff, but since this vehicle is still new, you can find most of that information on your own quite easily. What I would like to focus on is the absolute cataclysm that has occurred with this vehicle's development behind the scenes. In fact, problems with this vehicle go all the way back to 2014, when the first delivery was scheduled for 2017, with the first fully equipped squadron being predicted to be ready by mid-2019. Well, this was very quickly delayed due to some, how we say, notable testing problems. It was very quickly realized that the vehicle suffered from a horrendously obnoxious problem. It was so loud inside the vehicle that the crew had to wear noise-canceling headphones to prevent permanent hearing loss, and even with this in place, the crew would still have to undergo medical evaluation after every test run to make sure no permanent hearing damage had been inflicted. During these test runs, some other notable issues were found, such as the vehicle being incapable of reversing over obstacles more than 20 centimeters high. Well, following a very slight delay, the first Ares variants and 12 Ajax variants were delivered for acceptance testing. In June 2021, a rather troubled report came out revealing the trials of the Ajax had halted in November 2020 and had remained halted until March 2021 due to some extremely troubling reports. It turns out the Ajax not only assaults the senses, it also assaults the body. as test crews are becoming physically ill due to excessive vibration and noise within the vehicle, which left many suffering from nausea, tinnitus, and even swollen joints. This wasn't helped by the fact that electronics were also damaged during the testing due to excessive vibration, which would end up preventing the gun from stabilizing properly while on the move. In fact, conditions during the testing had gotten so bad that crews were limited to only 105 minutes inside the vehicle and a maximum driving speed of 20 miles per hour. This was, however, only the tip of the iceberg, as faults in the suspension design meant that the main gun in the turret could not be fired on the move, as well as the hull design, which featured inconsistent links with non-parallel sides, which led to vibration traveling through the vehicle in an abnormal manner, which led to problems tracking down the cause of the vibration. That same year, the Defense Select Committee would issue a scathing report on the Ajax, effectively describing it as being a multi-billion-dollar paperweight. On June 20th, Minister of Defense Procurement Jeremy Quinn told the Defense Select Committee, "We cannot be 100% certain that can be achieved," which, what he was referring to was saving the program. Always a great sign. On December 15th, Quinn would inform the Parliament, "We are commissioning a senior legal figure to look more deeply at Ajax and not just health and safety, to examine the cultural and process flaws that it has highlighted. We will leave no stone unturned to learn these lessons." It was during this health and safety study conducted that month that other additional problems were found with the vehicle, including loss of track tension, poorly designed sprockets that did not properly mesh with the track, faulty engine mounts, loose internal fittings, poor weld quality, and numerous electrical problems such as poor cable routing and weak bonding, which led to interference disrupting communication. In June 2022, the Parliament's Public Accounts Committee would issue a report which revealed the extensive delays with the program had been caused by what they described as a litany of failures, and how the project would either have to be fixed or it should be scrapped. Limited trials were recommenced in October 2022, with reliability growth trials being optimistically planned for January 2023. On December 21st, 2022, the Minister of State, Alex Chalk, would state that the trials could take as long as 18 to 24 months. This meant the trial results would not be ready until after the next UK general election. On February 24th, 2023, Defense Secretary Ben Wallace would boldly state that the program had turned a corner and was now back on track. And in March 2023, the Ministry of Defense would resume payments to General Dynamics UK, who they had not paid for 2 years due to all the development issues with the Ajax. Around this time, the track meshing issue had been corrected with the introduction of a new sprocket, various internal mounts were revised, and the electrical problems had been corrected, as well as the vibration supposedly being fixed by introducing new seat mounts with better cushioning, and the noise problem being corrected with the introduction of new headphones for the crew. Editor of Defense Analysis newsletter, Francis Tusa, would point out that these fixes for the crew were more mitigations rather than engineering solutions. The Financial Times would be given a chance to ride in the Ajax and would be handed a set of foam earplugs to insert first, and then the over-ear helmet with headphones, so you know that this is gonna be good. The Times would state that despite standing up and looking out of the hatch for the entire ordeal, the vehicle was still incredibly loud, and they noted a distinct deep mechanical rumbling noise. It was around this time that the current cost of the project was a rather hefty £5.5 billion, which was alleged to be within the original approved budget level. In January 2025, Ajax deliveries resumed with 3 British Army units receiving the new vehicles. All seemed normal on the surface, but on the 26th of November 2025, a rather disastrous report would be released, revealing that use of the Ajax had to be halted, and I quote, "after soldiers left vomiting following a training exercise." The report revealed that up to 30 soldiers, which is around 20% of the personnel involved with the vehicle, had become ill while training with the vehicle, with an MOD spokesman stating the men reported symptoms of noise and vibration. Rather hilariously, the acceptance manager for General Dynamics UK, who had previously worked as an Ajax trial manager, would respond to the report of this occurring with the insinuation it was the crew's fault that the vehicle was faulty. He stated the issues to likely be a simple case of crew error and poor maintenance. This defense does not seem to have been enough for the Ministry of Defense, who are now currently considering scrapping the now £6.3 billion project as a whole. A decision will likely be made on the program's future following yet another review into how safety and technical problems were either ignored or covered up just prior to the training exercise. Recently, according to Ukrainian military news site Militarnie, British defense observer Fill Your Boots would release a report which brought even more problems with the Ajax into the light. For one, apparently the vehicle's batteries cannot sustain the vehicle properly even during normal operating conditions, and the auxiliary power unit is apparently so terrible that units are practically forbidden from using it due to how frequently it breaks down. It also turns out that apparently the Ajax does not have its own camouflage nets or thermal coveralls, so nets had to be cut to fit from the AS-90 self-propelled howitzer, which was needless to say less than ideal, as the nets are too large to meet internal space requirements, which means that the crew really does not have any effective way to conceal the vehicle's thermal signature. Faulty fuel pumps have also been reported, which have caused instances of crews having to manually transfer fuel between vehicles using a separate external fuel pump. Somehow, the downward spiral continues, as the Ajax's technical manual exceeds 20,000 pages! Which, according to troops, the manual is a messy collection of bits and pieces of information taken from other vehicle manuals, which frequently cause confusion as to what the manual was even trying to convey. The 40mm autocannon also has a very interesting problem, which is that in the event of a malfunction, the crew has to wait for up to 30 minutes before normal operation can be resumed. Keep in mind that during those 30 minutes, the coaxial machine gun cannot be used as it's fired electrically. In yet another catastrophic twist, when the Armored Trials and Development Unit was tasked with taking an Ajax directly from the factory and driving it to the training range and opening fire, it could not be achieved without incident, due to the standard track lubrication gun being deficient and the crew improvising with equipment taken from the Warrior IFV. Now, in regards to what may happen to this less-than-stellar vehicle, who can really say? Though I personally will hinge my bet that the government will throw just a couple more billions at it and then abandon it, as there are already many within the government defending the vehicle due to the fact that, well, not every vehicle caused injuries to the crew. I have seen some suggestions that apparently the vehicle is losing support behind the scenes and is being frequently compared with the Nimrod Maritime Patrol Aircraft program. At the same time, there are those who are stating that since £6.3 billion have already been invested into the program, it's now too late to turn back and the vehicle's development should just simply be continued. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens to the program, and I do apologize to those watching this in the future if these problems have been fixed and the vehicle has turned out to be a real winner and one of the greatest modern combat vehicles of the day, as that would effectively make this entire video redundant. Anyway, so what lesson is to be learned from this whole debacle? Even in the modern era, boneheaded mistakes still happen. The big mistake today is thinking that we can never repeat the same errors of military vehicle development of the past because we know better. But this honestly makes the failures in the modern day even more inexcusable, as we can access information on thousands and thousands of failures of the past 24/7, and can try to learn from those mistakes, but yet choose to ignore them and simply wing it, even if it costs a couple $1 billion in the health of the personnel in the process. Wow, okay, I was thinking this was gonna be a short video, but apparently not so short after all. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed it, and I know that this was quite a shock to see someone like me covering something modern. Don't get used to it though, because honestly, the conflicting information and just trying to track down things that aren't convoluted and stupid is truly unholy. Anyway, I want to just say before I go real quick, Merry Christmas to you all, and I wish you all a Happy New Year. I shall see you all next year, and I just really quickly want to thank you all for the growth that has occurred here at this channel, and just thank you all so much for sticking with me through thick and thin this year. And hopefully next year, I will be able to deliver even more videos that will hopefully be better than what I have already delivered. Anyway, I don't know what else to say here. I'm just gonna, like, dematerialize into the ether now, so bye, I guess?